15 minutes ago.
Just what you just what you need before a seminar. Well, what I'm going to do now is we've got quite a few people on the line now, and I'm just going to transfer you over to be the host. So I'll just do that now, and then you can go over from here. And I think we all understand technology problems are like during these times when the internet's being so overloaded and our Wi-Fi's, being more tricky than ever. But great that you could make it. I'll just pass on over to you.
Yes, thank you. And apologies everyone for that. It was a slightly frantic moment in my house with me running around like a lunatic. And here comes my husband bringing me a cup of coffee. So that's great.
Oh, even better.
Yeah.
Good to be relaxed during these things. So that's fantastic.
I'm sure you've already done an intro, but just first of all, let me welcome everybody. It's great to have you all here. This is going to be one of the most exciting panels that I think I have looked after and assisted with, because there's nothing more pressing than helping us all get ourselves organised and on track and back in touch with our goals and what it is that we need. And we've got a fabulous team of experts today to take everyone through that. Now, I'm sure that Deborah's already taken you through the technical aspects of it. So if you could keep yourselves muted and use the chat section of this webinar to type in questions as we go. We're going to get each of the hosts to introduce themselves and what it is that they do to assist with this life mastery session. And they'll be speaking for about 5 minutes, but write down your questions as we go so we can use them in our panel discussion at the second half of the meeting. So let me start with introducing everybody. So first of all, and Deborah, let me first make sure you haven't already done this, but have you ever introduced yourself or introduced anyone as yet?
We actually haven't. We were just waiting for everybody, because quite a few people have been joining. We've been waiting for everybody to come online and we haven't. So you've got a clean slate.
Fantastic. Okay. So let's start with Deborah. Let's start with yourself since you're having a chat. Deborah is committed to the ongoing improvement of the world in which we live, believes in the power of each individual. Her simple, succinct and practical approach to raising awareness allows people to connect with true peace and happiness, regardless of the external events. For that reason, she founded Blisspot, an online community transforming everyday lives through encouragement, sharing, education, inspiration, and connection in the changing world today. Through community, education, and technology, Blisspot focuses on sharing skills to support individuals and businesses overcoming stress and thrive. So what I might do is just introduce Deborah. How about we get you started with you, and then we'll move to the next speaker. So we'll start with Deborah yourself. Why don't you give us a brief 5-minute rundown on what it is that you're so passionate about and what you're hoping to instill in with everybody's knowledge today?
Well, what I'm really passionate about is emotional and mental well-being, because through my own experiences and my own journey, what I realised that is quite often, well, mostly we can't control external events. Sometimes we can influence them or we can make a positive difference, but at the end of the day, what's happening is externally is often beyond our control. And I think with COVID-19, that's never been more on the forefront of people's minds, because it's something that really is happening to us. It's not something we've asked for. It's not something that we can really directly make a change over in the bigger global the global side of it, aside from doing what we can do to make us safe and influence, I guess, as best we can to be a positive force of uplifting during this time, rather than get dragged down into the fear, and whilst reflecting our own journey and what's going on with other people. So I'm very positive about sharing ideas around emotional and mental health to really help people on this journey, because one thing we can control is our own emotions and the way that we think. So that's what I'm going to share with you today in my talk.
That's fantastic. And tell us a little bit more about Blisspot and the way that those skills are really there to help overcome stress, and what Blisspot is all about.
Well, Blisspot again focuses on sharing skills to give around emotional and mental health, so that we can live in a more flowing state, get out of survival and be more in flow with our everyday life, and that affects our health, our relationships, and our career ultimately as well. So, and what Blisspot is, it's a broad community of global experts from all over the world. We have people contributing from many different countries, different expertise in those areas. So they could be a sleep expert, men's health, forgiveness. There's different areas that they can contribute to. They contribute to really help people on their journey, their personal journey.
Indeed. And I mean, I think this is obviously a really pertinent time that we stay connected with how we're feeling and what we're experiencing, but also staying connected to others. Why is it so important that we have sessions like this, almost to keep that emotional intelligence going as well, Deborah, in your opinion?
Well, it's when we connect to others that we realise that we're not alone, and we really aren't alone. And I think it's when we're in times of stress or duress, we need other people more than ever. So this is a time about being creative, because most of our social events have been cancelled. So I've been I had virtual drinks with friends on the weekend. We were going to have dinner with them, but we just got together for half an hour. And during that time, we realized that we're really going through the same things, and we are really all in this together. And we've got to support, and we've got to help each other. People are fearful. We've got to validate and acknowledge people's fear. I think it's about supporting people that are really vulnerable and taking care of them. So there's a lot we can do. At the moment, it's electronically, obviously digitally, that we can support and help people, but reaching out to people, saying hello to them, taking that extra time to take that call. I think this is a time that's really helping us to focus on what really is important. And it's also about seeing the good and getting the joy out of the little things. Like, we can't go on the big overseas holiday, or many people aren't getting the promotions at work. A lot of the things that add to our sense of joy or our self-worth, we can't do those things at the moment. So it's really about seeing the good in the little things. I just notice that there will be a lot of collateral beauty out of this, and it's sad that we have to go through it to see it. But I just see so much joy in the way people are reaching out and extending themselves and helping each other, and even the way my kids will connect or relate around the house. We're doing things that we didn't do before. We're playing cards every night, where we're not in front of the TV. We'll watch a movie together. So it's bringing us together in different ways that we weren't doing before. So yeah, it's times of change, and I guess we're flowing with it and seeing what. And I think another really big theme is accepting that it's okay to know, because in the past, we'd often feel that we really needed to know what was going to happen to feel safe, where in actual fact, we can't do that now, because everything's uncertain. Even the politicians don't really know what's going to happen. So it's to us to be okay with uncertainty. And that's a big lesson for human beings, because we know to feel safe. Whereas this is more about letting go and having trust and having faith, developing beliefs such as, it's okay not to know, I'll be all right, I'm resourceful, I'm creative, I'm innovative, I can get through this, I'll connect with us, I'll reach out, supporting ourselves in those ways, doing things that we can do rather than focusing on what we can't do.
It's a great way to wrap that up, actually, in terms of what can we do in a practical sense to make ourselves put one foot in front of the other, feel more confident and comfortable, and almost reconnect with who we are. We have this opportunity to have that time to reconnect with what our real values are and what our goals are. And that's one of the things we're going to be talking about today. Thank you so much, Deborah. We're going to talk some more with you at the end of the session and go deeper into those questions. Just encourage everybody as well, if you've got ideas that pop into your mind, it can be a personal question, it can be something that helps you get back on track. I encourage you to add those questions into the chat, which you should be enabled. If you're having any other troubles with technically as well, you can feel free to put things on the chat there. Now, I'm going to go to Amanda now. I'll just unmute you, Amanda, and unmute you there. There we go. So Amanda J. Scott is a stress consultant and author of Create Success from Stress. It's been reviewed by the New York Times, and it sees stress in a new light to connect with your strength. And today, Amanda, I'm really excited to have you here today because it's really about finding that inner ability and that what it is, reconnecting, if you will. And I'm sure that most of the people here today are female. So yeah, I'll just double check. Yes, I think most, if you're not female, put your hand up, and I apologize if we're going to stop talking to you for a moment. But really, it's an opportunity for us to reconnect with that empathetic side of ourselves. Tell us what you're going to be talking about to us today.
Well, I'm just talking about, because we're really all here because we're all leaders and we're all change makers. And we want to make these positive changes in our personal and professional life. But how can we make these positive changes when there's so much uncertainty that's going on around us? You know, how can we achieve those goals? You know, we've all set those goals at the beginning of the year, when there's so much, where it seems to be out of control. So sometimes we actually do need to have to reset those goals, and this time is one of them. So for some, it's probably, you're going to feel like your life's sort of falling apart a little bit, and you know, the things that you've built up are being swept away. So what we need to do is our actions today, through these turbulent times, they really have either a negative or a positive impact on ourselves or on others. So what can you do as a change maker, as a leader? What can we do? Well, the most important thing that I feel is that we can do is to be more calm, yeah, to stay calm, to be positive, to really look after yourself. And that is being kind to yourself, kind and compassionate going through these times, unconditional, loving yourself unconditionally, because that gives you the strength. And so it's without beating yourself up, without being hard on yourself, without putting conditions on yourself. It's let's get back into that strength so that we can be there, and we can actually be there for others as well. And because they'll be finding it hard through these times. So I think that's really important to be, the key is to really continue creating without reacting. Yeah, to start creating solutions, how small they are, doesn't matter, rather than reacting into all the problems that are occurring at the moment. So how can you use stress to create success? You might ask me that. This is what I do. I think the thing is to really be able to simply understand stress. And when you can simply understand it, then you're able to identify and eliminate any of the stress that you're holding on to, because sometimes we can hold on to it, and this is where we become reactive. We start to react. So I think stress is really, it's important because it actually shows us, we discover who we are, and it shows us what's important to us. So we need to step back and really connect with that side of it, and to find this is a time where we can do that. We can actually, okay, we can look inside ourselves and find out what is important to us. So did you know that there's 8 overstress emotions, and some of you probably might be going through a few of these overstress emotions at this time. But there's anger, that's one of them. Anger, nervousness, there's suffering. Some of us might feel we're suffering a little bit, or sorrowful. Then there's despair, resentment. We can be blaming other people about what's going on at the moment. Anxiousness, and there's fear. And all these are what make us sort of reactive and react about things. And they can be heavy, and they can be heavy in the body. and they can actually take control of us. And when they take control of us, we're not able then to connect. We're disconnected from our strength. So I don't know, some of you maybe now, you might feel a little bit fearful of the unknown, what's going to happen. And as leaders, as change makers, we really need to trust. We need to connect back to that trust and to help others to connect back into that trust too. So fear, we don't need fear in the body. I mean, there's not tigers or dinosaurs chasing after us at the moment, you know. It's tiring, really exhausting. So we need to, in these sort of times, we need to really trust more. And the way we trust, it's a little bit like crossing the road. You know, when we cross the road, we're not in control of the traffic going around. We've sort of let go of control. And because the control is within us, we have that self-control. And when we have that self-control, we have that inner knowing of when to cross the road. We might say, okay, well, I'll hang back a bit and wait for this car, you know, it's maybe going too fast. We intuitively know what to do, and that inner knowing. That's why it's so important to connect back to that. So we might let that car back, and then we might go across the road, but we're doing it calmly. We are in control of our emotions, and we are in that flow. And that's what it's about, getting in that flow, trusting. We can't control what's been going on at the moment, no, but we can go with it. We can evolve with it. We can be patient with it. It's not about your timing. There's another timing up there, and it's divine timing. And in a way, it is a great time. And you've got an opportunity now to really sit back a little bit and see what's important to you. Maybe you're going to reinvent yourself, but you've got this time now to do that. And you know, this time will pass, and it's trusting. This time is going to pass, and all those goals and all those dreams you had, they'll be back. They will be back. So I just, that's what
thank
it's
you
about.
so much for that. It's a great way of connecting in with coming back to what's important. And I like your analogy about trusting in what you innately know. We do know what we're capable of, and but it's hard in all of this chaos to reconnect with that, and taking the time to slow everything. We've all got no choice. We've got to slow down. We've got to take the time. We take longer to do things because we've got all the time in the world to do them. And maybe that's an opportunity to sit down, like you said, and say, what are my strengths? What is it that I do best? What is it that's frightening me and making me fearful and causing me those, you know, overstresses? I like that term. It's a fabulous term. And what can I do to suppress those? Maybe acknowledge them, you know, like we all know as females, acknowledge them, and then find a way to suppress them. So thank you so much. That was absolutely fabulous. Now let me turn to you, Jennifer. Jennifer, where's she gone? Jennifer. You on? Jennifer. Oh, there you are. Sorry. I'll just unmute you. I couldn't find you because I was looking for alphabetical and it was in the wrong order. Jennifer, let's talk to you about your area of expertise. I'm thrilled, first of all, thank you so much for putting this panel together, because there is so much knowledge here to be shared, and I'm thrilled to be offering it online as well. There's a challenge. Jennifer Austin is an image expert on visual presentation and first impression management. She combines her experience and research on clothing psychology to help both individuals and organizations put out their best foot. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for joining us today. Where are you, Jennifer? Can you give me a little bit of a wave?
I'm here. Hello.
There you are. Hello. Thank you. Now, I'll just mute everyone else so we can hear you clearly. Tell us a little bit more about what you do. You're clearly not in San Francisco. Would be very jealous.
No. I've just changed my virtual background. That's the beauty of
It's a beauty one, and you're going to take us through those as well. So tell us about your area of expertise and how you're going to help the listeners today.
My expertise is around managing your image. So that's through appearance, behavior, and communication. As the saying goes, you only have one chance to make a good first impression. So it's managing the people's perception and how you visually present yourself. So that could be through your clothing, the styles that you use, the color, your grooming habits, hairstyle, makeup, body language, positive body language such as great eye contact, posture, stance, communication. How do you communicate your image through online, your LinkedIn, social media channels? So it's really around taking control of how you're communicating your image. So the people that's on the receiving end will have the right image that you're trying to communicate. I can't hear you, Alexi.
Let me just unmute myself first. I was just saying what's important here is that we're in a different world. We're in a virtual world. How do things differ with the way you present yourself virtually and on a screen as you would in real life and in person when you're meeting people?
Look, there's slight differences, but with the current adjustment of working from home, it could be quite tempting to fall into a uniform of sweatpants and PJs. And I think there's a couple of things that you can do so you can get in the right mindset, like things like getting dressed in the morning before, as if you are leaving your house and going to an actual job. This will get you in the right positive mindset. It will set the tone for the day. By changing into your work clothes, you are telling yourself it's not time to relax, it's time to get down to business. I'm not saying you have to wear high heels or suit jacket or tie. A simple professional outfit will do, especially if you're having a virtual meeting. Trying to change into your work clothes at the same time when you're headed to work, and change your work clothes when you would return home from the office. This will help you change your mind state from shifting to work and home mode. Could be a big challenge working from home. So those are tips that I would advise and things to avoid when working from home. Don't wear patterns because that can get distracting when you are speaking. Too much jewelry, pastel color as well. That you don't want to be blending into the background. You want to make sure you stand out.
Well, that's interesting what you say about the background, actually, because I have deliberately, this is sort of my persona, and I'd made that sort of conscious decision not to do the background. But interestingly, what I love about what your background is you've made a conscious choice about what you're wearing compared with the background, so that you don't disappear into it and you don't clash against it, or there's a bit of a color thought. You do have to give some thought to these things, absolutely. Now, take me back to that moment where it's important that you get yourself ready for the day. Do you think that that's important to, in a physical way, get yourself ready for each of these virtual meetings as well?
Absolutely, because it's just getting you in the right mindset. As I said, working from home could be challenging because you can just slip into, I'm at home, I feel comfortable. So you want to shift that mindset to, I'm at home and I'm working. So how can we, also another way of getting yourself a boost is using color. Use color to boost yourself. It will make a difference in how you feel. How can we then use color? You can use it with accessories. Like right now, I'm wearing something with color. This is actually quite dark green mustard. You can add a pop of color in your makeup as well.
Yeah, I like that idea because it is part of our ritual in normal undertaking when we're going to work and we're going to meetings. Our ritual is to get ourselves ready, presentable. There's no reason why, just because something isn't virtual, that you can't create that presentation through your normal routine. And like you said, it in a bodily way, in a physical way, it helps you get ready for that moment of presentation or that moment of meeting. It doesn't matter that it's online or not. That's a very good point. And Jennifer, if I could just take you through, what do you think is the fundamental difference, if any, between doing this virtually for us as a whole, as a society, compared with the meetings? What are we missing out on? What are we really craving from not having that physical connection? Or are we not missing out on anything at all?
Well, you know what? At the end of the day, you are seeing the other person on the other end. It's not face to face, but it's still virtual. So how do we connect to that? It's really dressing to feel good about yourself. As I said earlier, not getting into your sweatpants or your PJs, getting dressed so you can feel good. So you can pick colors, you can pick favorite outfits that you feel good in.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I might just quote my mother here and say everyone should be making their bed when they get up as well to start their day, if you're not doing that already. I know I've got 2 daughters upstairs, they're age 12 and 13, and they're still making their beds even though the travel time between their bed and the dining room table is not that far. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for sharing with us that wisdom. You're going to be talking with us some more at the panel, which will continue after our last guests. Now, our last guest is Alina Berdichevsky, and I'm really thrilled to be introducing her today. She fuses a customized mix of mental, emotional, and spiritual fitness tools. Alina closes the self-care gap for busy men and women who are living the life but want more grace, efficiency, and purpose in their daily existence. Alina is a master practitioner of the neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, and certified coach, emotional freedom technique, EFT, and Psych K facilitator, as well as a student of marketing communications, journalism, and PR. Now, let me bring you on board here, Alina.
Excuse me, Alexi.
Yes.
Alexi, sorry to interrupt. It's Deborah. I just wanted to say, one of our members, and I'm finding the same here, the sound's not very, and it's such good content that people are giving, and I know it's very distracting. So somebody on the chat has suggested that somebody might have their audio on their phone and their computer on, or I don't know if it's just the whole. There is an echo. I'm getting some feedback, so I'm just thinking others might be the same, and then it's a shame because they're straining to hear the content. So I think somebody has suggested that if you've got your phone and your computer on, everyone needs to mute, just so that everybody gets as good an experience as possible. That would be great.
Yes, absolutely. I've got everyone on mute except for us and Alina at present. And yes, I do suggest if anybody's got the phone and the computer on at the same time, that's probably what might be causing a little bit of foldback. So can I get a little bit of a hand raised? Everything's okay. Can I put your hands up, and you can do that at the bottom of your screen, or just show me in the chat that you can hear. I can see a couple of people saying that's improved. Thank you. Yes, I can hear. Great. Thank you, guys. That's wonderful. All right. So let me go across to Alina now. Alina, you're joining us and going to be putting all that information forward. Welcome to the chat. Thank you so much for joining us, Alina.
Well, thank you very much. It's really interesting because looking over my notes of when I wrote the Cognitive Reset program last year, and it was very much a program for uncertain times, and the big thing at the time we're anticipating was the digital disruption, the fourth industrial revolution of 2020, and the uncertainty that would create in terms of climate, future, what happens when jobs go online. And what this COVID crisis has done is immediately escalated the opportunities that we have, because human beings, as similar to what Amanda was saying and Deb, have been met with uncertainties from the dawn of time. So before, we didn't know whether we'd get slayed by a dinosaur or a woolly mammoth, whereas now we don't know how long we're going to be in lockdown for. what world we're going to come out of in terms of, after the lockouts, what this means for industries and jobs, how we're going to survive our spouses and families. Because of this multidisciplinary, nerdy approach that I had, plus as a recovering hippie, I wanted to take some concepts from the spiritual world, from the New Age, in terms of manifesting your own reality and, what we're putting out there, and find some real scientific backing for it. And that's how the Cognitive Reset program was born. And through that, human beings are primed to survive. That's where our fight and flight response has been developed. But I'm a lot more interested in how we can use, very similar to what Amanda was saying, turning stress into success. How can we be using uncertain times to thrive? And what I kind of really want to speak to and touch on today is that the most important things that we can control during this time is our biochemistry, is our language, and our focus. Now, I had slides prepared, but I kind of just want to have a chat instead. And if anyone's interested, I'm happy to send everyone a fact sheet of things we can do and why. So, our biochemistry, as we all know, cortisol spikes immediately make every part of our being contract. And that includes our creativity and our sense of connection. And when we are at home watching a lot of news or even a lot of violent Netflix and listening to each other, that creates a negative biochemistry. You throw in a couple of bottles of wine into that, and it just becomes, it weakens our capacity to come out of this stronger into a more competitive world. So the first thing that successful people that thrive manage is their biochemistry, and that includes doing either really intensive exercise to release that dopamine, or slightly more yoga to raise that serotonin. It includes turning off the phones and engaging in more tactile activities such as hugging family members and pets, or painting or reading a paper book. So that's an important way to spend our time. Maybe have a holiday for a few days, but then kind of start, I think we should be using this time as athletes, cognitive warriors of sorts, so that we really come out of this in a better position than we were. Language is massive for me. I read a great quote the other day by a Canadian poet. I have to keep looking at his name, Christian Bach, and the O has a couple of dots on it. And the quote is, "Language is capable of infecting, of propagating and spreading, of indelibly marking its host." So I don't know how many conversations everyone has had that's begun with, "Oh, it's terrible, isn't it? Crazy times. Oh, the world's gone into a coma. Oh, we don't know, it's going to take 6 months. Oh, it's going to take at least a year." And I always say, well, how do you know? So we're kind of creating this tribal narrative, this groupthink that I think can actually create quite a potent reality for all of us unless we change that narrative. And, of course, the headlines don't help. My hobby is reading the headlines, and they read like a cliffhanger for a 7-part drama series, and language is loaded. And I've gathered today's headlines. Bondi virus outbreak, infected backpackers have driven up cases. Doesn't that conjure images like in those Hollywood movies of people with festering sores and infected? Warning, 19 death cases near 4,400. Warning, mutating coronavirus now has 8 strands. These are just tiny little snapshots, but we're bombarded with headlines like this that are designed to create drama and cut through, and it just completely starts to scare us and contaminate our brain. Where in reality, if we use really rational and forward-thinking language, we can say the same thing but in different ways, such as, we're on our way through. I'm curious to see where this transition takes us. What would I love to make today? And I guess that brings in that third point of focus in. When we are focusing on what's happening in other states and other countries and what are conditions like in a hotel for someone that you're not a part of. It's very addictive to do that, and we feel like we're a part of this collective human story, but what it actually does is incredibly drains our power and blocks our capacity to get through this time wholly. The most successful people, even beyond a situation like this, have very narrow focus based on their own locus of control. So every day, all we can focus on is the words that we use, how we connect with the world around us, what kind of exercise we're going to do, what we're going to put into our mouths and our minds, and what we're going to create and who we're going to connect with. When we're plugged into those other narratives, we become a part of that and a part of that problem and swing. And so the Cognitive Reset program has actual 10 steps, such as updating your biofeedback, cognitive reframing, emotional accounting, to actually turn us into warriors during this time, so that historically, when we've been through these times of change before as a human collective, we have gotten out the other side.
And that's a really good point, Alina. It's a wonderful way to sum up what you were saying there, because as a collective, coming back to the community of humanity that we live in, it's up to us as individuals to bring out our best. And I love that comparison between how you can change your own narrative from the negative that we're constantly absorbing through social media and through, you know, negative media channels. It's great to think about reframing that and rewording that in your own mind and almost reinforcing it like some sort of a positive mantra, so that we're not being bombarded by the negative all the time. Look, thank you so much. We're going to switch to our panel session now. I'm going to bring all of our panelists back online. Now, the point of this is, first of all, to have a bit of a discussion more in a practical sense for everyone to have a listen to. And the other thing I'd like to do as well is encourage you to ask some specific questions, if you're comfortable with that, about how you are operating in these difficult times and how maybe you can seek some advice from the panelists. Now, I'm going to be looking at the questions along here from what people have asked, and we've got some great questions already. Thank you. And also some great comments. Emily McGregor has mentioned a comment: warriors controlling our own attention and focus. I love that. Let's make that what it's all about today. So welcome back to the panel. We've got Amanda J. Scott, Jennifer Austin, Alina Berdichevsky, and Deborah Fairfull, and of course myself moderating. Let's get started with just a broad question, which might be, you know, to all of us coping in these challenging times, what are some specific strategies that people could implement to make positive change for the future? So Amanda, I might just get started with you. What are some really practical things that we can do in terms of bringing back the certainty to our world?
Well, I think we really need to check in with yourself regularly now, more often, and really acknowledge, as we said, you need to acknowledge how you feel. And it's not, it's without suppressing it. You really need to go through those emotions. If you want to cry, cry. It's a great release because you've got to be kind and compassionate towards yourself without beating yourself up. And it's really about releasing, as I said, those 8 overstress emotions. It's releasing those, it's reconnecting back to the 8 positive ones. And those positive ones are love, self-love, having that unconditional love for yourself without those conditions. It's motivation, getting motivated, inspired, believing in yourself. It's appreciating those little tiny things now. Let's appreciate those little things and get back to the basics. Joy, action, acceptance, faith in the future, and trust in that future. Let's reconnect back to that. And then it'll all pass. This will all go. And we will be back to creating, and we're always creating now. So once we're in your personal power, you're able to create. And you're able to think of new ways and let go of those old ways, perhaps.
Deborah, could I turn to you now? I want to seek out some practical things about how to. I love what you were saying there, Amanda, about reconnecting with the positive. Deborah, does that mean we remove from our lives the negative? Is this an opportunity for us to look at the negative aspects of our life and maybe shed those? And there's some practical suggestions you can do, Deborah, with what we can do to get rid of those negative aspects and how to shed that from our lives.
Well, that's true. I think this is a time where we realize what's really precious and important to us. But I believe as within, so without. So it's when we sort of even label things as positive and negative that can create the problems as well. So it's about, because when we're able to process things that are uncomfortable, then we start to flow. So say with negative emotions, because as within, so without. So if we're experiencing the negative on the external, there's often something going for us internally. So it's about being able to validate and accept the negative. So whether it be our own fear, our own sense of uncertainty, our own sadness, being able to validate those emotions, because when we suppress or deny things, and I think it's very easy in this time that when our emotions are coming to the forefront, because we're often locked at home, we've got to sit with ourselves, we can't distract ourselves with all the usual things that we do. We've actually got to sit with those emotions, and we would often label those as negative because they're uncomfortable for us. And it's about actually, and this will feel kind of unnatural, it's about embracing those emotions and letting them flow. The worst thing we can do is actually try to suppress or deny them, and people will fall into the trap of drinking, of deflecting or projecting onto others. But this is a time where we're going to learn to be sort of bigger and more whole than either positive or negative, that we're actually bigger and wiser than these things. And when we can observe those emotions, it gives us freedom. And it's about being the master of our mind rather than letting our mind be the master of us. So every day, you know, I said to my children on Sunday, how can we create joy this afternoon? What can we do to create joy? And it's as everybody else says, it's about what we focus on, where we focus energy goes. And it's about training ourselves to be a force for uplifting. So it's actually about embracing the negative, accepting it, validating it, and then we get back into our wise, intuitive self where we can make the best decisions for ourselves. We don't want to make decisions when we're in a negative state. That is a
good point, because I mean, you know, I guess I was coming at it from a bit of a negative, like here's an opportunity to just get rid of all that negative activity out of your life. But I like your point there about rising above it and recognizing where sometimes the negative things in our life are there for a reason, and we need
they're part of our life.
Yeah,
the negative is part of life, and it's about actually embracing that and processing it, and then we'll get to flow again. Yeah, exactly.
Alina, this is a nice segue to what it is that you work with as well. You talk a lot in your work about above the line tools. Now, you know, things like finding equilibrium. What is it that you can do to release that stress in a practical sense, to help get back to that mentality of having a goal and striving to get to that goal, Alina?
Yeah. What I've found, and I'm sure others will observe this too about this situation, is that it's brought up beliefs that we already hold about the world and about each other. So when we're pushed up against the wall, what comes up? You know, do you mistrust other people? Do you think they're going to steal all your toilet paper and hand sanitizer at Woolies? Are you an eternal Pollyanna and think everything's going to be fine? So this situation is just an amplified mirror. And what I recommend is use this as an opportunity to look at your world overall and the prism through which you look. But a lot of the time when we embark on a process of change, including doing affirmations, we are, well, I like to say in what's called in neuroscience, we're a little bit split brain about it. So generally people are one hemisphere, the other hemisphere dominant. We've heard creative or rational, and that can manifest in times of stress as being overly like, emotion, or overly like rigid and controlling. So before you embark on your creative activities, doing your affirmations in the mirror, I recommend doing some exercises like crisscrosses. because these things actually balance your brain hemispheres, and they kind of reduce that cortisol and level you out and chill you out. And that is an above the line technique of how you can not only go to a state of equilibrium, but then from that catapult to the next level of excellence. So I'll put this in my notes, but things like, eye patterns and crisscrossing and moving them around actually massages all the parts of the brain so that you bring more of yourself to the solution.
Oh, I love that. It's a real use of kinesiology to reconnect with the left brain, right brain. It's actually we've heard about the yoga things that are going on at the moment, and there's some lots of great fitness instructors doing things. But let's have a look at those kinesiology techniques, because if anything, you're right. We're going to have this imbalance with right brain, left brain at the moment, and one side. I mean, I'm not an expert. You guys are the experts, but we can get really stuck in a rut very quickly if we're doing the same thing every day for 6 months. Got to find ways of mixing that up a little. That's some really great practical tips. Now, Jennifer, can I turn to you now and just say, what would you say to that person who's some really specific strategies for those who are trying to cope? What is it about the way we present ourselves and the way we feel and the way we dress that can really help bring you up out of that negativity?
I think first thing is, as I said earlier, probably 99% of the population that's working from home, establishing good routines and finding clothes in your wardrobe that makes you feel good. So you can use this as another way to feel good and not feel too negative with what's happening at the moment, using colors to elevate your mood.
Jennifer, can I just stop you there? I think the feedback might be coming from the headphones that you might be wearing. Can I just encourage you to maybe unplug those and just go directly with your computer speakers, and that might assist us a little bit with the feedback.
Is that better?
A little bit, yes, that's a little bit better. Yes, sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt. Please continue.
So we all know we can feel fantastic, but why do many people put little thoughts into what they're wearing daily? So my suggestion would be, when you wake up in the morning, have a think about how you want to come across in terms of perception, whether you're going on virtual meetings or even at home. Pick clothes that makes you feel confident.
How do you, we had an excellent question come out of the group a little bit earlier, and just because you did mention clothing there, they mentioned that make sure, it's a good opportunity to go through your wardrobe and try different outfits and clothes you might have forgotten about. Don't wear clothes that are too small. That's not going to make you feel good. But new accessories. It's almost an activity that we've got the time to explore. Pull everything out, throw it out on the bed, and have a look what works for you, because what worked for you 10 years ago when you bought those clothes might need to be re-examined. Is that perhaps a good suggestion, Jennifer?
Absolutely. You have a lot of times, sitting at home. So it's a really good time to declutter your wardrobe.
Yeah. And what about, how do you shop? How do we buy things when we can't expand our wardrobe if we're realizing that what we've got isn't good enough?
Look, you know what? Online. We can shop online. I know it's probably challenging right now to go out as a lot of the shops are closed, but online shopping is another way to find certain pieces that will be suitable for you.
Yeah, I guess laying everything out on the bed and working out what you do have and what you're missing might be a good idea. Like, I went to the shops the other day and I realized I really needed some black pants that actually fit my ass, because they weren't fitting from when I bought them 3 years ago. So that might take a bit of practice. It's about feeling good with what you wear.
Yes, absolutely. And also making sure that those styles and fabric suits your body shape, your color. When you are wearing something that suits you, you feel more confident, not too tight, not too loose. It's just the right fit.
Excellent. Now, let me just, I want to turn to another conversation here, which is all about what a lot of us in the participants in the group, I'm sure, are doing, which is pivoting your business. Now, that requires a little bit of mental agility, because you might realize pretty quickly that everything that you've been doing is no longer viable. It's no longer drawing you an income. What skill set do you have? What other things can you do that you can perhaps draw an income from? But I would say, to begin with, what's really important is that you do something that is true to you. So you don't suddenly find something that is completely out of your realm of abilities and try and pivot to a completely different career at this point. Probably not a good idea. But how do you find what it is that you're good at within your area of expertise? Deborah, let me start with you with this one, because it's about change management, isn't it? It's our own internal change management process. How can you take all of that? Oh, hang on, Deborah, did I put you on mute? Bad me. Hang on, where are you? Deborah. There you go. Beg your pardon. Go for it.
These are very challenging times, as we all know, but it's also a time of great opportunity. So while processing our emotions, as I mentioned before, for example, my daughter lost her job at a dance studio, because that's obviously not able to happen now, but she's actually taking all those classes online. There's a demand for it. And while actually it was hard, and she had to acknowledge and go through, because it's a bit like a grieving process when you let go of something. Now she's coming out the other side. She's being very creative and innovative. For myself, we were going to actually do this as a live seminar, which we're all really excited about, but now we've made it an online event, and we've got plans for lots more coming up. So I've got some friends that have weight loss business, so people aren't really concerned about weight loss now. They're more concerned about immunity and how to stay healthy. So they've pivoted and they're educating around that area now. So it is amazing to see in just a few weeks how adaptive and innovative people have been where they can. My son, for example, had to go out and get a job. He was going to uni, and he still is, but that's all online. And he was going to get a job at just the local shopping mall, at Woolies or wherever he could. But now he's actually started up a little online business, and he's doing it all with no investment. He's being so creative with drop shipping. So it's amazing just seeing what people are doing in a short period of time to pivot and be creative. And like you say, using their existing skill set, but adapting it to the current climate.
Also, I might suggest as well, belong to a professional association. Now's a great time to give them a call and ask them for some. So if you're a consultant, for example, and you had a practice that was working just face-to-face meetings, they might have some suggestions about how you can change your income stream, other members are doing as well. Connecting with people who are doing the same thing as you. Don't see them as competitors, see them as a real resource for information and education. Find out what they're doing, mentor one another. If you're doing something that's inspiring to others, reach out to someone young, less experienced, and say to them, hey, I just wanted to share with you, this is what I'm doing. Let me know if you want to know my processes and procedures. I did this last week with someone who lost their job and they wanted to start a podcast. So I shared with them all my templates and my spreadsheets and how I can, what my order of thinking is. And that's a really great way to share the love and make good connections with people that you're in business with.
I love that. I was just going to, I was just going to say I love that, because that's like true collaboration. This is a time to dig deep and really collaborate and support each other. And how lovely that you mentioned that. It's really important.
Indeed. And us as females, again, apologies for any men in the group, but we are very good at this, and we're very good at nurturing. We're also quite good at being paired. So let that go at this moment in time and just support one another. Speaking of pivoting, Jennifer, this is where knowing your brand, your online presence, and what you look like, and the first impressions you make, all those things that you're expert in, this is the time when you really have to know what you're showing people online, and maybe if you're going to pivot, perhaps this is a time to refresh. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I would probably say look at your visual presentation and really drilling down on the core essence of you, your personality, your passion. What really sets you apart from your competitor? Or even maybe get some feedback from other people. Having an audit of the styles of clothing that you wear, colors, and really understanding your personal brand. The next thing you really want to think about, how do you package that brand? You know, think about, as I said earlier, what are you wearing? How do you behave? Website, your photos online. What is the look of your brand package? And how do we package that up and present your brand so we can gain influence on that target market?
I like that point about you talking about it as a package, because I think we forget what our online is. We forget that there are family members putting photos and tagging us on Facebook. How do those look? If you're of the younger generation, you might have photos that are a bit, you know, not so great on Facebook from when you're behaving particularly professionally, for example. Now's a great time to trawl through those and figure out which ones are really representing who you are. And also a great time for, just give you a plug there, Jennifer, to maybe reconnect with someone who's a personal stylist who can help you look at that branding and that online presence and ways that you can tweak it to improve it. Heaven knows we've got plenty of time. Only this morning I was reading that that LinkedIn has a 23% surge just in the last week alone of people engaging with that platform. So if your LinkedIn profile doesn't look great and it looks unprofessional, there's 23% more chance of picking at that and making that that first impression, making that on how they're going to think about you simply by that first impression. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Alina, to go to you as well about why do we pivot? What's behind that? What are we connecting with on an emotional level to make us want to do that? And how do you tell of those emotions, Alina? Hang on, I'll just unmute you, sorry. Go. Oh, wait, no. Go.
As a coach, obviously, majority of clients that come to me need that courage to do something that they've always wanted to do. So what appears to be a pivot is actually a sense of freedom, resourcefulness, and permission to kind of go, whoa, now is my time. Maybe I've got a bit more money. Maybe my industry's in a decline. Maybe my kids are a bit grown up. And technology has enabled that so much through remote study, through the ability to take things online, through democratizing certain markets. So I would say people are not pivoting rather than steering, and each to change and to finally do and seeing that unique note to sing becomes overwhelming.
That feeling of overwhelm, absolutely right, because another great thing that we as small businesses are so good at is putting unnecessary pressure on ourselves. So how do you manage that enormous of things to do that you might suddenly create after watching a webinar like today's?
A lot of the time, the things that we enjoy don't create that pressure. And when we look to the accounts of all the great masters at work, they would sometimes, like, you know, the painters of our time, they would disappear for hours on end, or writers in a writing frenzy, which seems incredibly productive and prolific, but there's a real burst of that whole brain energy behind it, where the subconscious and conscious are aligned. When we do feel bogged down by the minutiae, is, let's be honest, we really can't be bothered with the shit. Pardon my French. So I think technology once enabled us to outsource some of those tasks. With the gig economy, especially now, it's a great time for virtual assistants, copywriters, bookkeepers, to enable to work to get rid of all those little things for you, because as the great Pareto principle states, in layman's terms, the 80-20 rule, only 20% of what you do actually makes a difference. 80% of what you do really doesn't matter, and it'll only have 20% impact. So find your 20%, outsource everything else. I mean, my God, people are really good in jobs right now. Thank you for swearing, but I had to fit it in at least once during this talk, otherwise it wouldn't be an Alina presentation.
Thanks, Alina. Now we're running, we're coming to the end of our time here. Thank you, everyone. I want to finish off with Amanda, and I want to talk about some really good tips on just, I guess, maintaining a positive mindset at these times as a nice little wrap up. Get us back into that positive track up. Can you give us some top tips?
Well, I think all change is growth. It's not challenging, it's all growth, whether it's internal or external, whether it's you're finding out more knowledge or more wisdom. It is all part of our involvement, evolving as a person and discovering who we really are. So I think the real tip here is, be creative without reacting to things. Really, anything that you really want to do and love to do, get into that. That's where you come alive, and you can do anything to really create, even make a sausage roll or whatever makes you happy. So it's getting into what makes you and really letting go of trying to control all this chaos and dysfunction around you, and enjoy that time of discovering who you are. Maybe write some notes out. These things are what important to me as I go through now 2020. This is what I really value, and maybe you appreciate things a lot more today than we probably have done at the start of the year. So it's all about creating without reacting.
I think a way to sum things up, I've encouraged my daughters to keep a diary at this time, if nothing else, a historical document. In 100 years' time, those family heirlooms will be down. Make sure it's in hard copy, not in digital. And it'll those thought processes of what we're all through, we can't underestimate the enormity of it. I'd like to thank all of you once for joining us and sharing all of your knowledge and your expertise with this panel, and being so flexible, agile like we are as small businesses, being able to get online and share this with this wonderful group. If I could encourage everyone who's participated in today's webinar to join with us on LinkedIn, connect with us, follow us, listen to what we have to say, because all of these women on the panel today are constantly drip feeding out little nuggets of wonderful information, and they're the experts in their field. So thank you everyone for joining us panel. Thank you Deborah, thank you Jennifer, thank you Alina, thank you Amanda. Let's keep connected, let's keep going, and I encourage everyone to be part of the community of human. My name's been Alexi Boyd. Thank you for joining me and on the panel, and wish everyone best, and remember, keep connected and keep in touch with one another.
Alexi, I just wanted to say too to the group that we're going to start up a Monday morning meditation every Monday at 9 o'clock. It's going to be a virtual group, so people can join in for half an hour, and we're going to have experts. It's all free, of course. So every single morning for half an hour on a Monday morning, I'll send out an email to everybody with a link so you can join in. And we're going to study mindfulness and practical tips on the way. We're actually going to do a meditation, explain all the philosophy behind it and why it helps you every Monday morning, just as an ongoing support for people during this time.
That's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah,
I think that's really exciting, Deborah. There's of opportunities here to keep connected. So we'll send all of those details out. If you miss any of the information, feel free to get in touch with any of us on LinkedIn, and we'll make sure that you get all the information today and get that information out to you. Thank you, ladies, once again for all of your help. And I wish everyone the best in these challenging times. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Alexi. You've been amazing as well. We really appreciate it. You've been amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, all right. So thank you again, everybody. And we really appreciate you being here together with us. And yeah, as Alexi said, contact us on LinkedIn, and we look forward to staying connected. Thank you so much. We'll end the meeting now. Thank you.